Oh, welcome. I'm so glad that you can join me here today. 304, pages 731 and 32, excerpts out of 850, excerpts from The Sovereign Light, my book named after my ministry. My name is Reverend Maria Arvanitidis. How do you do? And this is a course in metaphysical spirituality. This audiovisual version is a guide to help not only you, but me go through the editing process. That after so many pages, we have almost made it to the final completion, that I would reveal and make such revelations to what had inspired and motivated me in the first place to actually do this, because it was like I'm befound with all the corrections that needed to be completed. And the rush it was to get this book out there amongst all the other lower density feelings of competition and ego-driven realities of, well, people who've already kind of, have a little bit more substance perhaps, and a little bit more ahead of their learning experiences and aging process, if you will. However, we're all on this together. Everyone is on their own path and their own level, and I'm learning these things too, bit at a time. And so I was rushed to get this out there about a couple of years ago, because it was like the idea, even though it was a synthetic one and it wasn't like original, still kept others, even for any little thing that was a little different and authentic, to be captured and taken by others who had a little bit more substance than me as a beginner. And so this is why, and the fact of the matter being is that it's a really thick book, and instead of making it in like 2-3 books, I even condensed it some more from 1,020 pages. And so I was channeling and working through me and modifying, and the variations of bringing everything together to make this is still in the refining process that you are all experiencing with me. And hopefully by the end of this, you can purchase my book in its completion. And what it's like in the beginning, not to have any help. Even if you're reaching out, no one's there to help you. And likewise, we learn from this how nobody needs any fixing or correcting or help. It's whether we choose to engage with others and resonate with others in this fake reality of fitting in and trying to be something that we're not, so that we can get along with others and become as helpful as possible in the resonating of, hey, I can resemble and understand what this person, or, oh, I absolutely, this person is irrelevant. I have no connection, because there's no resonance there. And so, I'm pretty sure the great ones from before us, like Moses, and, a few of them even had stutters, okay? So these imperfections that automatically are focused on by all the judgment in the world. And so bear with me, we're in this together, and let's do this. And with that said, I'm hoping to have everything accomplished all on my own doing this, and with this motivation that 2023, I can have the package already and maybe do a little bit more refining. Because in the beginning, I didn't really know where this was going. And apparently it did need some outside assistance in this way of doing it very transparently and going through the editing process that no one else would be able to even help me with. And so we're doing this together. What is authenticity? And I think this might be the last of, oh no, there's one more. There's one more episode, and then we go into what is shame and guilt. And from all the various possibilities of experience, I don't have any expertise to lend in the way of capturing and imprisoning myself and with you along with me. I'm all about enabling into self-sovereignty and freedom. And so, with that said, let's begin today, number 8, on what is authenticity. Again, one more thing. Some of these statements, okay, I gotta kind of correct the spelling on the earned from earned. But some of these statements and affirmations, I kind of wonder myself sometimes where they came from, because I'm like, what? And they don't really kind of fit me anymore. So it's up to you to see what you can get out of them or modify them in your own way and recreate them and get inspired. And it's not to be better than me and devalue my work and go on a competition of making money, because see, there's a lot of fakery out there. It's to dispel all that and banish it so that we can move forward on our paths together. And so even with those new age teachers and everything, I found myself clashing with them in the ways that it didn't really benefit me, because I'd get to this level where I felt, even though I didn't have all the substance as they have had before me, I did have that authenticity about me that they wanted for, freshness, refreshing. It was refreshing in a way that, hey, my people and my peeps and my tribe will like, so let's keep going and generate more money in this way and exploit people like me. And this is why I had to move real fast on this book and this name and the way I went about it of my ministry, to do it from another angle of putting out this book and making sure that the brand and the name cannot be, hijacked. And so, there's other creative ways. And if people want to really, really do this, I can always change and mutate and modify some more. And this is what it's all about, because we're always in this morphing stage of recreating. And it's meant to inspire us, and as we work together to co-create the new earth. And so let's begin. 9 minutes into this already. The enforcement of the will that is not from the self might have been through its passed down lineage and genetically changeable, especially when it does not agree with the entire structure of the self. Through the inspired passion, and to find that the ego mind might forsaken in the many biased formalities to be fairness, and that can forever to the core discriminate. So what I found is time is irrelevant, because even with this, I'm able to edit, and as I go, try not to change too much. But I have, in the past 2-3 years, changed as well. So I'm kind of refining it in the way that grammar and spelling and things like that, mostly, and try not to change the way of its original intent. And so whenever you're ready, let's do this, because it's all about this. And when this actually gets out, it will be another 3 years given to those who are in the spiritual movement to be able to take, for instance, Saturn in Pisces and be able to structure and do something. Finally, we'll be able to get this out there and actually resonate with others. And so it's in the stars. And I feel that, yes, very much the galactic connection of how it influences me and I influence it. And it's all about connection, right to the 12-strand DNA, not just the third or the 2 that we've been going on. So let's continue on. Whenever you're ready, let's say these words out loud. I'd like to hear you say them. And perhaps maybe I just started this most recently in about halfway through the book to do a separate sampling. I think it was TikTok had something to do with it, in that it only gives you enough for an elevator speech pitch, in a sense that I say this on a separate video, this affirmation for the day, to complement. And bear in mind, when I was going through this, it was because I could not stand to read. It wasn't rebellious or anything. Like, I can remember Anton LaVey with the Satanic Bible, and some of us could only learn through that in what the actual Bible was all about, because it was just as annoying as the Bible to me. This thing called the Course in Miracles, I think that's what it is. A Course in Miracles. Anyway, and so that terribly annoyed me, but I had to somehow fake a little bit in the way that it was a discomfort of, this is who I'm not, but I have to kind of go with it in order to be able to obtain and become ordained as a minister, as a reverend. Again, with the Canadian International Metaphysical Ministries, I had to go through this place called the Rising Sun, and you can find out more about it in the introduction to the book. If you wish to purchase it, it will expand further on this. So let's continue on. And ready. Like always, find your space, open up, ground, and center. This is what the next 3 years that we've been practicing will follow, right up until 2026 even. So all this work will be very, very helpful in the next few years to come. It's all about grounding even in fluidity all around us, like water. So how do we ground and build structures on top of water? We're not really doing it. It's like an island, but there's also what's beneath the water. And so this depth, this emotional, it's not a conquest, it's a working through to clear all the toxic ideas and beliefs that we've had, and just go through a purification process and build on even unstable ground. And this is how we do it, no matter where we are. And As above, so below. And as we breathe in from above and below, picture this pillar of light that we have from going within, found that, as they say, that northern light, that guide, that spark. And picture that spark. And it can be as small as within the source, and how we see it as a cross even. But what really that is us breathing as above and so below. And we breathe at the same time in and bring it from the soles of our feet, the connection to the earth, and the connection from the ethers and the sky and the sun and the star, and just breathe it in all the way to the heart space center. Congregate there. This is your center. And then a point of resonance that when we breathe out into the resonating field. Because keep in mind, the electromagnetics within the heart that connects up to the brain are much, much more than what's in to do with the making of the brain. And the electromagnetics of our brain is not that much as we have within the heart. So this has been totally bypassed and ignored and seen as irrelevant to the death cult, whatever you want to call them, whether they be funeral directors, embalmers, or even the technocrats with their AI movement into higher consciousness without bringing the heart. And what happens is, well, we're seeing it all around us, what's going on since the pandemic and the vaccines and the PCR testings. Let's not go into that. So 17 minutes already. So sounds good. Let's begin with this affirmation activation for the day. Breathe in and out. I am loving my body and my sexuality, even at the cost of my very own survival and that of my authenticity that goes against all religions to accept the whole of me. And breathe in and out. I am loving my body and my sexuality, even at the cost of my very own survival and that of my authenticity that goes against all religions to accept the whole of me. And breathe in one more time. Take it all in. And whatever thoughts and feelings, you're blowing it out into your holographic field. Again, I am loving my body and my sexuality, even at the cost of my very own survival and that of my authenticity that goes against all religions to accept the whole of me. So this was a lengthy introduction, because this statement, this affirmation, this activation is so very important. Still relevant for me anyway. And I hope that it makes a difference in your awareness of your own spirituality and path and journey that you're on. So to have the spirit be in bondage is not something to be romanticized about. To not agree upon its authenticity and to be accepted by the rest of its world because of gender and or religion. The consensus are the background many who became the mirrors, and by buying into the indoctrination of such hardships, they can win over or be forever lost about. The support, it can be said, exists when the self can live from a place where it is in discovery, exploration, and in the frame of innocence, to not see the separation, unless it is forced in a way where it must play, and in with such defined rules, to pretend that it is something it is not, is how it learns, through our contrast. And what causes all of this? Okay, every episode, every lesson ends off with the purpose of today. When a person is lost and has no purpose, to feel that you have no purpose in life, that will break a lot of people, and is, you know, the reason behind a lot of these. It's the ego mind at play. And so you can be a celebrant without a purpose. You don't have to prove to the world that you have the support of the others in order for your opinions to be valued. And your experiences can be told in stories, and they don't have to prove that and reflect as you being an expert in something or another. We're just sharing and engaging through the sharing of these stories. And the discernment comes with your, I suppose, how you feel would make sense in your world to put together. And so, continue on. I find a lot of the times people are just lacking the attention and just need that relevance so that they have some meaning and purpose. Otherwise, now we even have this thing called MAID in Canada, where assisted suicide, where people feel they have no purpose, they can actually be helped to die and transition from this body and their consciousness and let their soul go. And so, and just a few years back before the pandemic, I can remember even the thought of even expressing to anybody of suicidal thoughts, that they would institutionalize people. And so let's continue on. How things change. And they're always changing, and it can go from drastic one extreme to the other in the polarities, in the poles. And so it's up to us to bring and close the gap of the illusion and dissolve all those membranes that capture us into the prison of the mind. And moving on to the next page, 732. I am loving my body and my sexuality, even at the cost of my very own survival and that of my authenticity, that goes against all religions to accept the whole of me. So the longer it takes to learn, the better off it is, and yet it feels so awkward at times for the need to escape, because it does not find pleasure in its work. So we're always told that in order to earn a living and make money, we have to take on tasks and employment, do work that is nothing to do with us. It doesn't resonate with us. Something that is totally opposite feels awkward, and it's like being in another person's shoes, and just trying to fit into places where we really, it brings uneasiness, disease, and all these other things that make us feel like we're lost souls, and yet that's the only thing we're taught. We're raised to believe that work is not supposed to be pleasurable. Earning money is not supposed to be pleasurable. We're supposed to suffer. In the same way of learning, and even Wicca, to learn you must suffer. What is that? Again, that's an indoctrination into religion. And so it's just another form of religion. And I studied theology not in school, but actually experienced it from firsthand by joining these cults, these groups. And so based on this experience is what you're gathering here from me when I speak to you. And so, because, this need to escape from working in drudgeous places where you really don't like working there, but you have to put in 30, 40 years. And so with that, you get little bonuses, and you get accepted into the tribe, into the community, and you get support, and you get promoted, and you just do as they say. And so you get to go on vacations and summer homes and all these other things. You get to have a wife and a family and all these other things, whatever, right? And so the enslavement no longer is stable and safe to secure with. It threatens to stop sustaining and take away all freedom. This thing for work, the way employment as we knew it, government jobs and stable jobs, even, funeral business, that's a good living, and you'll never, run out of employment, and that's not the way it works. And so it can take away its life, and yet not by its own hands, as the wills of wills agreed upon collectively, borrowed God will not allow such thing. So this God, this man-made God that people fight over, and I put it in a capital as, well, of course, God, right? It's a title, entitlement, that whoever resembles that image, they feel entitled. They got this chip on their shoulder because they're like the closest resemblance to that idol of worship. And so people will resonate no matter what that message from that messenger happens to be. They are that poster boy or girl of these fixed in archetypes that even from Wicca, it doesn't necessarily have to be Abrahamic. So what is the purpose of awareness? That is not of the self-made, will be that of the illusion to exist in a world made of opposites. God is genderless and thriving to be interpreted by its creator's individuation to the whole, made to identify itself as being aware, and that meaning to exist in physical form will be its authenticity, from which it feels inspired to express through it, this vessel, this temple. And like always, this purpose to make that resonance with people who are still feeling lost souls, or even soulless entities that have to be entitled by having this revealed to everybody who will empathize with them as the purposeful, for example, celebrant, or the purposeful gender, or, and so we all have to change our gender just to kind of be in that connective theory of, what your preference is, then your gender must reflect it. for the society to accept, and so on and so forth. And now we don't even have to do these. Eventually, we're going to get over this period. This is just the phase that humanity is going through. The pendulum. It keeps swinging, right? It eventually goes to a standstill. And the purpose, with that said, is to let go of all the illusion that salvation can be found through the ego mind that hath created it. And so we're just that sliver of this God consciousness. And the moment we change an angle or perspective, we see the soul in a different light. And we can go into another reality and have reality. Like change right before our eyes. Like morph into another quantum field. And if you want to see the world change, you have to change from within. Be the change that makes the change in the world. Or someone said that before. Anyway, it's very relevant. And I will leave you with today's affirmation. Thank you for joining me. And take a nice deep breath in. And assess your leverage of emotions. What is it that you're feeling when you're saying these words? Are you owning them? Where is it that you're doubting your soul? Where is it that you've been, spiritually, psychically attacked? You can leverage this and find for yourself where you have been psychically attacked, where all the psychic attacks through, when you assess and leverage your feelings of how is it that you're feeling, where are these doubts coming from? Why is it that you're doubting yourself, for instance, on an exam? I had to take it so many times over the SAT tests, and I found that they were all rigged. I just proved to myself after so many tries how they're actually rigged from one extreme to the other, from getting a 44% to getting a 99%, from getting a 66%. And what the best outcome from their way of thinking was actually in the mid-60s, 68, 66, and then everybody in the profession respects you for that. Apparently, in theory, with funeral services in Ontario, Canada. So, that was just one field. I mean, all these fields are rigged. I mean, I can even remember entering the police force and the psychological tests. Well, they weren't so many psychic attacks as there were in the funeral services from these professors. Illuminati or whatever Freemasons you want, a brotherhood you want to call them, but I felt the psychic attacks, and because you start doubting yourself, and the first answer is always right, and so they try to confuse you, and so do you believe it, or do you believe your own discernment? And discernment comes from experience. And so when I was in this group taking the tests, psychological tests and what have you, with the police force, there was one pregnant girl, or I think it was one girl who was really related to someone who was higher up in the police force. And so because she was in that class, everybody passed, just so that they can pass her. I remember because I think she was sitting behind me. And so these things are rigged. I'm telling you, they're rigged, just like the elections. I knew this from just experimenting in this way with life and studying life in this way, that I actually, I don't have to go to school for theology. I actually went into these tribes, into these denominations, and, they're very welcoming, these religious cults or whatever cultures. And living in Canada, there's so many of them. And so I grew up like this, and I experienced firsthand, without having to go and study and get university degrees so I can go through all the hoops and dumb down myself and really be a programmable dummy into this enslavement program. It's all coming out now. So I will leave you with today's affirmation. And won't you join me? I am loving my body and my sexuality, even at the cost of my very own survival and that of my authenticity. That goes against all religions to accept the whole of me. I am loving my body and my sexuality, even at the cost of my very own survival and that of my authenticity. That goes against all religions to accept the whole of me. I am loving my body and my sexuality, even at the cost of my very own survival and that of my authenticity. That goes against all religions to accept the whole of me.